Hi there, Greg here from Sykes House Farm. I'm here at the Tetley in Leeds. First things first, today we're going to go through an amazing piece of roasted rump beef. So for me, other than sort of sirloin or rib of beef, a rump is right up there in terms of roast beef. It's absolutely amazing. It's nice and lean, it's not as fatty as the other guys, but it's really, really tasty and it's really, really tender. So I'm going to go through my perfect, well, I think so, my favourite way of doing a nice piece of roast rump. So here we are. So right, what we've got here is an amazing rump roast. So there's a nice bit of fat across the top of it, that's your sort of cap if you like, and then it's a nice lean piece of meat underneath it. So it's really lovely. You've got that nice sort of a little bit of flavour on the top there, but then it's a harder working muscle than perhaps your sirloin or ribeye, so you get a lot more flavour as well. So first things first, and a real key to roast beef is to get the meat out nice and early. So this has been out for a couple of hours. You want to get it to room temperature really. So this is about a 2 kilo piece, so I'd say get it out the fridge a good hour and a half before you want to roast it. So that's been out, it's nice and not warm, but it's just not fridge cold. First thing you want to do is give it a little drizzle with a bit of decent olive oil. Not extra virgin, but just something that has a decent flavour to it. And then a really, really good seasoning all over. So don't be shy with the salt. So I think a lot of people probably under-season beef, but it's not just about the taste, it just helps it sort of get a nice sort of crust on it as well. And I like to put a bit of pepper as well. Some people will say to put pepper at the end, which is absolutely fine. I just prefer to get it on and give it a little bit of flavour at the start. So make sure your salt's covering. And then we've got a good old roasting tray there that's seen some things. And we're going to put a base of onions or a trivet on the bottom. You could put some carrots, some celery, peppercorns, thyme, whatever you want in there. Beef sits on top like that. So there we've got it sat in the tray there, and that's ready to go into the oven. So for roast beef, I always like to, there's all sorts of different methods you can use. You could reverse sear it, you could cook it low overnight. But I think a traditional roast for something like a sirloin or a rump, I'd always go a fairly traditional roast. So I start the oven nice and high, so I've got it at 220. If you've 220 or 210 fan or 230, anywhere that you're comfortable with, but a nice high heat to give it a good sear on the outside. So I'm going to put it in for about 25 minutes on a high heat, and then I'm going to drop the heat after 25 minutes to about 175, 180, somewhere around there. So we're going to cook it in total for 20 minutes per 500 grams. That should give us a nice pink roast. So we're going to start it on high heat, drop the heat, and it's going to cook for 20 minutes per 500 grams. I'm going to put it in a nice hot oven now and just let it do its thing. So that's been in for 25 minutes, so you can see how well that's sealed all around. It's got lovely colour on there, the fat started to caramelise, and it just smells absolutely amazing. I wish you could smell it. So that's the first 25 minutes, that's to get that seal on the outside, to get that real sort of colouring and that real caramelisation and that sort of that proper roast meat flavour. So I'm going to drop the oven down to 175 now, and we're going to continue to cook it. That's got about another 55 minutes. So this joint this size was about 1 hour 20 minutes. So just to reiterate, it's 500 grams, 20 minutes per 500 grams. So this was just over 2 kilos, so we're looking at about 85 minutes in total. Right, so roast beef's got to be Yorkshire puddings and gravy, right? So believe it or not, I'm not from Yorkshire. I know it's hard to believe, but I do make an okay Yorkshire pudding. I think I've got my head around it now. But the best tip I've ever been given is equal parts of everything. So we only need really 4 ingredients, 5 if you count salt. But we've got here our basic ingredients of what I think you need for a perfect Yorkshire pudding. So here we are. The 3 key things are milk, flour, and eggs. So I was always told that equal parts of everything is going to give you perfect Yorkshire puddings, which I agree with. And then we're going to cook it in dripping today. So you can cook it in cooking oil, or dripping or lard. Either of those three things will work. Olive oil doesn't work because you can't get the oil hot enough for Yorkies. Butter doesn't work for the same reason. Whereas dripping or cooking oil or lard have a much higher burn temperature, so you can get them nice and hot before you put your mix in. So first thing you do is in your Yorkie tin, the guys here have lent me one, and I don't know if you can see it, that's a proper Yorkie tin there. So it's had years of Yorkshire pudding abuse. That is absolutely caked, and it'll make the most amazing Yorkshires, I'm sure. So get some dripping in the bottom, enough to sort of cover each one. So if you just slice your dripping, get it in the bottom, and you need to put that in your oven, getting nice and hot. I'll sort of put it in when my beef's got about 10 minutes to go. I'll get these in and get them get the fat nice and hot. So we'll get that ready to go in. So always start with my eggs. I'm going to do 3 eggs today, and that's going to give me enough for sort of 5 or 6 good sized Yorkies. So 3 eggs in, and then the key with starting with the eggs first is it gives you your sort of base level of where you need to put everything else. So each egg's different, so you could be as much as sort of 10 or 15 grams an egg out. So always start with your eggs, and you can sort of see where you need to be. Give them a little bit of a whisk and just sort of have a look at where that comes up to. That's about just short of 200 millilitres. So you want exactly the same level for your milk and exactly the same level for your flour. So eggs go in first. So next up, flour. So to make sure it's plain flour. Don't use bread flour, don't use self-raising, don't use wholemeal. You really want white plain flour for this. So it's not a slur against other flours, they just don't work. So just below 200, the 200 mark there, that's how much eggs we had, so that's how much flour we're going to use. So your flour goes in. And then if you do milk last, that will sort of rinse out any flour that might be stuck to the sides. Again, just below 200 ml. Give that a swirl. That goes into your mix like so. And then a good pinch of salt. And then just give it a good whisk until it's smooth. I've heard all sorts of tales about leaving a few lumps in it, or adding an extra egg, or adding a splash of water. Whatever you want to do, go for it. An extra egg will make them a little bit lighter, definitely. A few lumps probably won't hurt. I just like to make it so it's just smooth. I don't like to work it too much. But just till all the lumps are out, and then back into your jug. So try and make it a good sort of 45 minutes, or at least half an hour before you're going to use it. Let it settle a little bit, and then give it a quick whisk just before you're about to serve it. So set that aside until you need it. There'd be enough for 5 or 6 Yorkies here. But as you can see there, it's really nicely caramelised all over, really juicy in the middle still. We'll just give it a quick probe. I want it sort of anywhere between sort of 52 and 54 really. So it's creeping up, 49. So lovely. Right, so that was 53 and a half, so spot on. Now we're going to rest that for about 20 minutes. So if you can see in the bottom all those crusty onions there, we don't want to waste any of that. So I'm going to take this beef out to rest, just on my chopping board, and all that goodness there, we're going to drain some of the fat off, and then we're going to add that, we're going to put it on the heat, and I'll show you to make a really, really fantastic easy onion gravy next. So you can see the contents of our pan. Anything that's been really burnt or anything I've scraped off, and I've got rid of some of the fat. That's all our caramelised onions, all our beef juice. And we're just going to add a little bit of water to that pan. Touch more. Of course you could use red wine if you wanted to. You could use a little splash of port if that was your thing. But we're just going to try and wriggle all those bits off the bottom of the pan just to loosen it off. And to that, we're just going to add a pouch of our fantastic, I say ours, but it's something certainly that we stock, which is our True Foods beef gravy. Just squeeze the contents of that directly into the pan. Then you can make a traditional gravy, it'll be absolutely delicious. Everyone's gravy is a little bit different, but just for the sheer ease, so you can focus on everything else, just put your True Foods beef gravy into the pan like so. Just let that melt away. What you'll be left with is the most amazing onion gravy. Right, so roast beef. So we've got that, it's been resting now for about 20 minutes. I'm going to carve it. As you can see in the plate there, there's loads of that resting juice. So that's going to be added to our fantastic onion gravy there. Don't waste anything. So we're going to put our gravy into a jug. Nice and glossy. It really is a fantastic gravy made by proper chefs. And it gives you the opportunity to put your own spin on it. Like I say, a load of red wine in there would be fantastic. But so if I slice down like so, and you're left with this lovely pink all the way through, not too rare, but loads and loads of juice. Even now after 20-25 minutes of resting, it's still really good. So we're just going to take that string off. And you're going to put a few nice slices of our roast beef on the plate. So juicy, perfect medium rare I would say. And then just carve so tender. Slice it as thick or as thin as you'd like. So we've got our roast beef there. We're just going to lay that in the center of our platter. Beautiful and pink. It'll be so tender. Like I always say and try and convince people all the time, the longer you cook that piece of beef, the tougher it's going to be. So to have it nice and pink like that, it's going to be super moist, super tender. And a good rest is equally key on that. Last thing missing, of course, is our Yorkshire pudding. So let's have a look. Right, moment of truth. Yorkies have been in about 20 minutes. With about, so if they do start to colour up or they start to look like they're burning a little bit, just drop the heat down, just let them set, let them sit there, try to and avoid opening the oven because they might sink. But I have to say, these are pretty fine looking Yorkshires. Nice and round, so that's, just to reiterate, equal parts egg, milk, flour, pinch of salt, some dripping, and then nice hot oven while your beef's resting. So you don't have to try and open and shut the oven all the time. Get everything out that you need. Your roasties can sit out for 10-15 minutes, and then your Yorkshires you end up with a Yorkshire that looks something like that. There we have it. We've got our delicious rump of Yorkshire beef, perfectly medium rare. It's a world-class Yorkshires and probably the best gravy you're ever going to have. Enjoy.